So, let me turn my microphone on. So, who watched the opening of the Winter Olympics? Did you watch that? So, it was a wonderful opening event. And there is one part that was really impressive to me, and that's when they had the big round stage in the middle, and in the middle of that round stage was another area that was a circular area, and it came from below, filled with about 100 women, all kneeling down, all dressed in white, and then they had a drum, and they were all drumming in unison. And then all the dancers came out, and they all came out and performed around the drummers. And the announcers said that in the Korean culture, the group is valued much more so than the individual. The group is what is important. And even in their names, they refer to their last name before they refer to their first name. So if you talk to one of them, you would say, "Hello, Stephen, Martin, Jeffrey," because Stephen is my last name. So it's a very different culture from ours because our culture is very individualistic. We value individualism very much in the United States. But in their culture, the group, they believe, can do so much more than the individual. So when there's a bunch of individuals performing together, something beautiful can be accomplished. And then you saw that with all the drones flying in the sky above the Olympic Stadium. And then they all had lights on them, and then all these drones just flying all of a sudden would form into like a big giant bird that was flying in the air. And they made all these different types of animals that were flying in the air with thousands of drones. As a group and in a community, so much more can be done. And I bring that up because in our first reading, we hear some of the laws of Leviticus, and we're hearing about those with skin conditions. If you had a skin condition, not just leprosy, it was any skin condition. If you had psoriasis, or if you had something on your face, then you would be declared unclean. And if you were declared unclean, then you had to be separated from the community. Because in that period of time, the Israelites were starting to learn what it meant to become a nation, to become a community. Because before that, before slavery, they were a bunch of Bedouins. Bedouin is somebody that just kind of moves from place to place with their sheep, and they don't really have a set home. They just travel, and they just travel with their families. So they're making these laws so that they can go into the promised land. And so one of the laws is that if you have a contagious disease, such as leprosy, then you are separated out. And you have to rent your garment, which means you tear your garment. And when a Jewish person tears their garment, that means that somebody is dead to them, either physically or emotionally. And then they must say and scream out if they run into anybody, "Unclean, unclean," so that the other people don't get close to them, so they don't catch the leprosy. So when Jesus sees the leper, what does he do? The leper has faith in Christ. And he says, if you wish to do this, you can do that. Just imagine telling your child, if you wish to make your bed, you will do that. How many of us do that? And Jesus was moved with pity. He was moved with compassion. And he touched him and made him clean, which was a major no-no, because you did not touch a leper, because then you were unclean in the Jewish faith. But Jesus did. And that leper was made clean. And he was able to go show himself to the priest and rejoin the community. So for us to fully understand that, separation from the community is something that means something to us too. The whole idea of hell, when you think of hell, what do you think of? Fire, damnation, total yuck. The definition, the Catholic definition of hell is separated from God. And when we commit serious or mortal sin, we're choosing selfish ego and individualism over the group, over our own faith, and we separate ourselves from God. And those who maintain that separateness from God, they have a hard time getting into heaven because they don't need God. They prefer to live on their own. They prefer to do only what I want to do. And when people separate from the community, they can become very lonely and they can become very depressed. That is hell. It's when you think you know better than God. And you're so set in your ways that when you meet God, you don't trust him. And you don't listen. Because I know better. That is hell. So in this lifetime, we have to learn how to be an individual and how to live in a community. And when we can balance that, then many beautiful things can be accomplished. God's grace and mercy can live through us to others when we realize that we are an individual who lives in a community, who's trying to follow God's will. And as a community, we can accomplish many things as long as we keep God at the center. So think about this week. Am I keeping God at the center? And do you realize that the community is greater than just me? Think about that.